practice of dentistry, of course, part of the multidisciplinary medical practices in Nigeria, very, very important, and it does face a number of challenges like the others. This Day newspaper, Nigeria's newspaper of record, did feature, with that headline there earlier in the year, experts preferring solutions to rural dental care in Nigeria. Let's take a look at one of the quotes that was featured in that article from This Day newspaper, where they spoke with Dr. Ezeoge Paul Adehe, where he talked about one of the major challenges being the lack of access to dental care, specifically in rural and underserved areas rather. So the challenge is exacerbated by a severe shortage of dental professionals and inadequate public health infrastructure. This hampers the effectiveness of preventive measures and health promotion program. So we're going to talk about that further and build on that conversation with Dr. Ogo Eze, who is a smile makeover dentist and who joins us now to discuss further. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. So I wanted to start off with rural areas and one of the, whether or not, just your thoughts, the reason why they are underserved is because there's not much of a return on investment. They're not able to pay for these services. Well, what do you make of the challenges being faced by the rural areas?
Well, I think there are a number of factors to consider. Yes, affordability is one aspect, but access, I think, is quite an issue. It's something that needs to be addressed. Now, interestingly, when I talk about this, it's, I run certain parallels to life in London, because as you know, I am a London-based cosmetic dentist. That's where I was born and bred. I trained there, been 24 years as a dentist, having qualified from King's College, London. So there are certain parallels that I draw within access issues to dental services. But of course, I know we're here to speak about Nigeria and the issues that we face. So I was quite astounded, I have to say, when learning that the differences in the ratio of dentists available to the population. Now, interestingly, in the USA, there's one dentist to every 1,500 people. In the UK, that ratio changes slightly, 1 to 1,800. South Africa, the ratio is 1 to 20,000 people. Now, Nigeria, it was staggering, the difference. We're on 1 to 200,000 population. I mean, that is huge. Yeah. It's something that needs to be addressed. And if you look at the World Health Organization's ideal ratio, the recommendations, they want to see one dentist to 2,000 people, between 2 to 5,000. So I think in Nigeria, we are quite a way off that. Yeah. And there are certain things that need to be done to improve those ratios. And of course, it's even worse. We're talking about rural areas. So the disparity between dental services in the urban areas, we have Lagos, we have Abuja, Port Harcourt. Compared to rural areas, there's a huge disparity. So in rural areas, that limited number of dental services, people can't access it. And for not just the fact that there's less of them, but what's the dental awareness like in these areas? These things are multifactorial. Yes, that there are less clinics, but also people don't understand the importance of oral health. There's a lack of understanding, and then that brings us to education. How do we increase public awareness of these things? There's all sorts of things we can talk about for that. So, the problems, it's just not a singular, a linear kind of answer. Right. There's a lot of things we need to consider that are encompassed within addressing such an issue.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the UK, where you were trained. And we followed the elections pretty closely over in the UK. Of course, Keir Starmer won and is in charge now. But the shortages that the NHS is facing in medical professions in the UK, I want to, I guess you've talked about the parallels. I remember the debates with Rishi Sunak where they talked a lot about the shortage of medical professionals in the UK. So I guess that's something you're familiar with. So, looking at Nigeria, though, and you talked about the ratios. So how do we get more professionals? Do you got to train more people or pay them more, offer them to pay more money? I know there's a whole tax discussion going on in the UK now. How do you increase the number of medical professionals in a particular field?
Well, my answer is all of the above.
Yeah.
All of the above. Again, it's never just one solution will crack it. There's multiple things to consider here. So, interestingly, I've recently learned a term. Is it JAPA?
That's right.
I don't know if I pronounced it well.
Yeah, you got it correct. Yeah.
So JAPA. So I understand that's locally trained healthcare professionals, dentists, that once they've graduated, they move abroad, seeking better jobs, increased standard of living, so on and so forth. So how do we retain our dentists? Yeah, I am what we call, I guess, reverse JAPA.
Right.
So I was born and bred in London, trained, King's College since 2001. I've been there, set up my own clinic, second clinic actually, in central London. So I have now, having acquired 24 years of experience, I am now looking back home.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
This is interestingly my first visit in a professional sense back to Nigeria.
Yeah.
But it's something that is well needed. And let me not digress anyway on that side. But, we need to incentivize our professionals to stay. Yeah. There needs to be something attractive that's put on the table for them to want to stay and pursue their careers within Nigeria. So, for example, rural areas. How do we encourage dentists to move out to the rural areas and practice? Well, we can offer more competitive salaries to them. We can increase the number of dental institutions, dental training schools that are within those areas. Yeah. So it could be the government providing funding, and also like the Federal Ministry of Health, along with non-governmental organisations. So to create these kind of programs, increase education for those areas, sponsorship, bursaries, things like that, to encourage entry into the profession, So I think, there are a number of things that can be done.
So you mentioned having, you've set up 2 clinics over there. So there's existing infrastructure, right? You don't, you've got electricity, 24/7 power, and so on and so forth. When you look at, I guess based on what observations you've made of the infrastructure deficits here in Nigeria, particularly for public health services, what do you make of it all as to, I guess, how that can be improved? I'm not sure if you're here to set up a practice or something, but what do you make of that deficit, particularly for the medical professionals?
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned whether I'm here to set up a practice, and I'm being asked this question every day. Are you going to set up one?
Right.
Well, who knows? At the moment, I'm just coming, I'm learning, I'm trying to impart what my expertise and share what I have at the moment. Who knows? Maybe in the future I might decide to do something. But I think, a lot of this comes down to funding.
Money.
It comes down to money.
Yeah.
Because, perhaps I think we need more dental practices being opened with modern technology. Technology has advanced so much. This digital era that we're in now has just revolutionized what we do. It has allowed us to practice more efficiently, more accurately. It's also allowed a degree of remote dentistry, which will then bring me on to some ideas.
Yeah, in fact, good point. Let's put up this next quote from Dr. Paul Agede, where he talked about tele-dentistry. And I should mention that he's program director at the W.D. Kelly Pediatric Dentistry at Temple University. He says tele-dentistry can revolutionize access to care, especially in remote areas where dental professions are scarce. Mobile health applications can enhance patient compliance and engagement by facilitating patient education, appointment scheduling, and reminders. But I guess, the thing is, you need electricity, you need internet access for this to work. So how practical do you think tele-dentistry is here? Again, if we're talking about the rural areas, outside of the Lagoses and Port Harcourts and Abujas of the world.
Yes, I think there are clear challenges.
Yeah.
You know, NEPA, to be able to have the energy to run the computer, to access this. I do understand that. It's difficult because the world has changed.
Yep.
And there has to be movement in that direction. And there has to be a way of facilitating that movement in far out areas. Now, yes, it will be difficult for them to do that. I mean, we're talking about people who may be limited in their dental awareness and dental knowledge, to now start adding on top of that, well, you don't know much about dentistry, and in addition, I'd like you to learn about IT,
right,
digital technology. I mean, you can see where I'm going with this.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm of the opinion that we need it, so let's not shy away from it. But I think there are things that can be done to support and facilitate that process. So, for example, where most people in those far out rural areas don't have access to the power, the electricity, the energy, perhaps we can bring some kind of hub to them, like local centres, like IT centres that are, free for all. So they can come here. It's almost like, they go to their computer station and they can access this technology. We need people on site to train.
Right.
And that training, it will be wonderful. It will be a huge advantage to facilitate this whole process of the tele-dentistry and for them to be able to have remote assessments, but also in the wider spectrum of them becoming a lot more digitally savvy. I think it's very important because ultimately we all need to upskill.
Yeah.
We all need to upskill, and once they're able to improve their digital know-how, it will help them work-wise, give them better prospects, all these things. So those are my thoughts. Create hubs for now in areas that don't have, and let's see if we can start, introducing this kind of remote service, because I think remote is absolutely key.
Yeah.
I actually adopt a lot of that in my central London practice because I have people coming to see me from all over, outside the UK, other countries, Paris, wherever, America, and they will often say, oh gosh, I can't quite fly across to you for the examination,
right, so
but exactly, remote, we do a remote assessment, so I think it's the way forward.
Research and development, got to get your thoughts on that. Dr. Agege also talked about that in his interview with this day newspaper. So let's get that quote on what he said about medical research, which is, that's what gave us the vaccines during the COVID pandemic. So here we go. So he says collaboration between academic institutions, government agencies, international organizations can enhance research capacity and provide access to global expertise and resources. Promoting interdisciplinary research and the dissemination of findings through conferences, journals, public forums can help translate research into practice and policy. I have to ask if you've come across any research that has helped you, that's been generated from within here. We don't really have that much. What's your take on the importance of research? And I guess Nigerian universities really do have to step up in that regard. But yeah, how do you feel about the whole, what that can contribute to the medical field? It's
absolutely key. We are in, healthcare is ever evolving, and we must keep up with the times. We must keep up with the times. We must be able to access information from our partners, from those that have gone before us, for advancement. There are a lot of innovations that are out there. We were just talking about the digital era, and how many years ago, not that long ago, we didn't have like scanners that scan the mouth. So now I can, a client can come and see me, I scan their mouth, I have a digital print of their teeth. So whilst they're away doing other stuff, if I want to at midnight, I can go and access this file and plan. So that research and collaboration and learning from others, with all the technology, we can now attend a conference in Japan. It's just a click of a button. So I think it's critical to where Nigeria needs to be and for how we will get there.
Speaking of getting there, 2025, we're asking all our guests, I guess, in the different fields for an outlook for the new year. Not sure how long you're going to be in town and what's your outlook for, I guess, the dental profession in this country looking ahead at 2025?
I think Nigeria has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I think if we just push and continue to invest, I think we could really come a long way. Like at the moment, we have some practices that are digitally enhanced. So practices that have the iTero scanners, that are using CAD/CAM systems, that are creating all this wonderful like dental, these dental crowns, all sorts of things digitally. And we need more. We need more. So we can certainly, it is within our reach to open more clinics, dental practices which have the advanced equipment and technologies, and upgrading the existing clinics. Let's not leave them behind. So collectively, we now have a lot more to serve the nation. So, those are my thoughts.
Fantastic. It's an optimistic outlook. We're glad you dropped by to talk to us because it's a field that, as you said, has a lot of promise, and we really need to improve those ratios as far as dentists to patients. Dr. Ogo Eze of Smile Makeover, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.